Hi, this is Fiona from IELTS with Fiona and the Members Academy. In this podcast, I'm going to talk to you about an experiment that I carried out this week, which I think was successful. And it's all about writing and using those online AI checkers that you can get. At the end, you'll see my conclusion. And also, if you listen to the whole lesson, you'll get lots of ideas and vocabulary that will help you answer this specific question. But before we come to that, I need to give you the background to this story. So I got a message on my website from somebody who had bought a very well-known AI program that gives you feedback. In fact, it's probably the most famous one on the market, and it's considered to be the most reliable one. But I've never tried it because you have to pay for it. So she was using this particular one, and then she tried the one that I recommend on my website. Now, I have to say, I don't honestly recommend any AI checker to mark your writing. It's never going to be as good as a teacher. I know there are lots of benefits to them. They are good. The free ones are good. ChatGPT is good. I'm not against them, but I'm not recommending them either. On my website, I give you options because I know people want to use them. And a lot of them are absolutely rubbish. A lot of the ones that you pay for are rubbish. So I just want to try to give you one that I think is okay because I've thoroughly tested it. But I'm not saying that's perfect. It's never going to be perfect. It's a robot. But anyway, so she chose a well-known one. And then she bought the one that I recommend on my website. And she got in touch, and I welcome feedback. I welcome you to write to me and see what your experiences are, because it's important for everybody to know this stuff. And she said, so I subscribed for the AI writing checker that you recommended. It breaks down a text according to each marking criteria and points out the mistakes. So yes, the one I recommend, it gives you bands for each 4 criteria and it gives you feedback. So I think that's pretty good. And she says, although I am quite satisfied with the comprehensive feedback, so she's happy with the thing I recommended, the final band score is extremely misleading, she said. I decided to use sample answers from, and I can't mention this one, sorry, I can't, but this is the expensive one. And then I checked them against how your service evaluated them. The overall band scores from your service were consistently 1.5 points lower than suggested by the one I'm using. And I found this disorienting, she says, especially if you are preparing on your own and this is the source you're relying on. So her basic message is the one that is supposed to be really good gave completely different and much higher scores than the one I recommend. She said that the one I recommend is good if you want to see a general overview and what are the mistakes in your essay. However, I wouldn't trust the score as it's far away from the exam standards. So I wrote to her and I said, look, let's do an experiment. Send me your essay and I will give you my score as a human, as an ex-examiner, teacher, whatever, I'll give you the score that I think it is, and then we can compare with the one you're paying for and the one I recommend, okay? So she was very happy to do that. She sent me her essay. Now, she was getting grade 8 from the well-known one. The one I recommended gave her 6.5, so that's 1.5 less than the grade 8. And I gave her 6.5 as well. So before I even knew what score she was getting, I gave exactly the same score as the service I recommended. And it taught me a lot, because together with this student, we went through the reason why it got 6.5 and not 8. And she agreed with that. She totally agreed. And the conclusion is really that I think task achievement is the one thing AI gets totally wrong. And I ran the essay through ChatGPT, which gave it 7 for everything. I ran it through Claude, which also gave it 7 for everything. I gave it 7 for everything except task achievement, and I gave it a 5 for task achievement, which just goes to show how important it is to get that task achievement score right. And that is simply by answering the question correctly. It will drag your score down, and AI does not pick it up. So if you look at what ChatGPT said, it said a student addresses all parts of the question, presents relevant ideas, blah, blah, blah. And the same for Claude. This essay addresses all parts of the task. It doesn't. And she could see that when I gave her the feedback. So I'm going to conclude there by saying that I have a lot of evidence. I've tested a lot of these AI checkers. None of them are perfect. You have to be really careful about the scores they give you, especially for task achievement. They cannot recognize whether you've answered the question or not. Maybe you mentioned it once and they'll say, yes, you fully answered the question. But that's not how it works for IELTS. Let me give you an example. So I'll move on now to the main essay question, and we'll look at how you should answer that question. The question is this: it can be difficult for small local shops to compete with large supermarkets and with online shops. How does this affect local communities? What could be done to improve this situation? So there are two questions there. It's a two-part question. You have to say, how does it affect local communities? And what's the solution? So what's the problem, basically? It's difficult for small shops to compete with large supermarkets and with online shops. How does this affect local communities specifically, and what can be done to improve this specific problem? It causes other problems, but what about this problem? Now, we did tackle this question, and it's on my website. It was slightly different, but the topic is very similar. So I think it's an important topic, and you need to read up on it. You need to prepare this topic. The one we did that's on my website, it's about consumers choosing to buy goods that are produced in their local area rather than imported goods. So it's that thing about, do you shop local? You can see how they take a topic and ask different questions, and you've got to make sure you're answering the right question. So the reason I gave this person a 5 is because she didn't answer, how does this affect local communities? And again, this will be on my website, so you can see this full outline with models and vocabulary and everything. But she spent a whole paragraph explaining why the big chain stores are so successful. And it took up the whole second paragraph, and that meant that she didn't address the question of the effect locally. She said local shops close because they can't compete. Yes, it doesn't mention how does this affect the community. She says high streets and town centres become identical. Okay, how does that affect the community? And then she says local shops generate more employment. That goes off topic. She addressed everything else, although quite briefly, because she'd used up all of those words answering a different question. She got 7s because the language was good. For example, the solutions, the government could offer tax breaks and incentives, but that wasn't enough to get her a 7 in task achievement. So I said it's a weak 6 and possibly even a 5, because a band 5 says the main parts of the prompt are incompletely addressed. And if you want to look at that in more depth, then that will be on my website. You can also see the other 2 examples about shopping local as well. So let's look at what might be a better option. So what happens when local shops close down? I try to think of everything in terms of the 3 E's, the economic impact, environmental concerns, and then the ethical arguments. So the economic impact is probably the most important and probably the easiest one to deal with. So when small shops close, money that would have stayed within the local economy goes to these larger corporations, reducing local employment and investment. The community ties is another good argument. Local shops often serve as social hubs where neighbours interact. Their closure can diminish social interaction and community cohesion. And there's a loss of personalised service. Small local shops often provide more personalised customer service. And again, people may lose that personal connection. The environmental argument, I think it is a strong one. But does it address the question of how it affects the local community? I'm not sure. So I would probably cross that one out. So large supermarkets and online deliveries can increase pollution through transport, while local shops generally rely on foot traffic, reducing carbon emissions. I don't think that's an argument, but where I live, we do have huge trucks going to these big supermarkets, going through the small villages. If you had more local shops, I guess you'd avoid that. You could put that as an argument. So those are the 3 arguments, and I'm gonna go now straight to the model answer. We're gonna do this in the Members Academy live lesson on Saturday, so I haven't written my own yet. I've got this from ChatGPT, and I think it's particularly good to address the problem we've talked about. ChatGPT starts with a topic sentence. Listen to this. The decline of small local shops negatively impacts communities in several ways. That's the topic. It immediately tells me that they are going to address this question. And then it says, Firstly, it reduces the variety of shopping options, as large supermarkets and online retailers often provide standardized products. This loss of diversity can make high streets appear uniform and unappealing, diminishing neighborhoods' unique character. Now, I don't think that's a particularly strong argument, but the way it's written means that it answers the question. And it's firstly and then secondly. Here's the second point. Secondly, small businesses are important job providers as they frequently hire local employees. When these stores close, profits that once circulated within the community flow out to larger corporations, reducing the economic resilience of the area. Without thriving local businesses, communities lose a vital source of social cohesion and stability. So, two main arguments which have been expanded and extended thoroughly. So the examiner is in no doubt that you've clearly answered the question and you've developed it with examples. I think because, again, it's done by a robot, it's a bit impersonal. So I'm going to read Stefano from the Members Academy. He's just submitted his essay for me to mark. And it's just got a bit more of the personal effect on communities, which I really like about his essay. So he said, amongst many things he said, this has a negative economic impact at a local level, leading to financial and human misery. Older workers who lose their jobs may struggle to find new ones. So he goes into more detail about the personal impact of losing local businesses. He says it can negatively affect their mental and physical health. Many small business owners feel the intense stress of competing for survival. Local shops often struggle to balance costs and earnings, leading many to bankruptcy. So I like the fact that he thought about individuals because, of course, they make up the community. And he said also, additionally, customers lose access to the unique and specialized products that small shops offer. Selling goods sourced from local and regional areas not only supports the economy, but also allows communities to preserve their cultural variety and regional heritage. Again, I think you can see the difference between a robot writing an answer and a real person. And I'll come back briefly now to the other part of the question, which was about the solutions. Now, I think this is a lot easier to deal with. Although, again, what happened with the robot answer was it talked a lot about what the government could do. And there's some nice language here. Governments could offer tax breaks or subsidies, helping local businesses remain competitive. Local authorities could run campaigns to encourage people to shop locally, raising awareness about the benefits. So look at all these collocations: offer tax breaks, run campaigns, raise awareness. But then you've got, well, what can the small businesses themselves do? Well, they could adopt hybrid models, combining physical stores with an online presence, making it easier for them to compete with larger online retailers. And small businesses could form cooperatives to bulk buy products, for example. And again, from Stefano, there's a suggestion that you can have a kind of a local currency. In Sardinia, apparently they have this, the islander currency. And it's like local money that you can only spend locally. And finally, I've been listening to the BBC News, which has a really interesting article about how there's been a resurgence in high street shopping and more new independent businesses are transforming the way our high streets look. So there's a lot of nice language there. High streets have been revived Leading figures in the town are doing more to make them relevant to their individual local communities. Towns need to adapt to survive, and so on. Survive, thrive, revive, all of those really nice words that you could use in your writing. So let me know if you've got any thoughts or experience from what you've been using to check your essays. Have you noticed lots of different scores that they've given you? Are you confused by them? If you go to my website, there's a free blog about these AI checkers. So just leave your comment there or email me, and I'm always interested to see the development of these, because I know they are amazing. There's nothing wrong with using them, but they may give you wrong band descriptors, and you need to just be really careful about taking them too seriously. All right. Thank you ever so much for listening. Do please let me know if you've got any requests like that or anything you'd like me to check for you. And then remember to subscribe. Tell your friends how useful this is for you. And thank you once again for joining me and listening. Okay, bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.